In this lesson, we're going to explore what I like to call your very own private design collection full of clip art and photos and objects, easily accessible from either Corel Draw or PhotoPaint. We're also going to look at importing camera raw images, those photos you might take in raw mode that have no processing done to them ahead of time whatsoever. So you're working with a negative, so to speak, where you can make your own enhancements to a photo. We're going to start here in Corel Draw X4. You can see I'm still working with my menu. And if you're following along, we're on page 2 from the previous lesson. And if you've jumped to this lesson and you would like to follow along and you've got the exercise files, go to your Lesson 16 folder and open up menu4.cdr. Flip over to page 2 and you'll see what I see. All right, let's start with those extras I was talking about. On a separate CD are all of the photos and clip art and the objects I was talking about that you can access directly from the CD if you prefer to put it in your drive. But during the installation process, you can choose to have all of that stuff copied onto your own hard drive, meaning it's easily accessible. You don't need the CD in the drive to access all of these extras. That's what I've done. So I'm going to take you through that scenario as we work with our menu here. We're going to start in the top right corner where I'm not too keen on this graphic here, which is the ice water with the lemon wedge. So I'm going to click on it and hit my delete key. I prefer to put something else up here that has a nicer looking background perhaps. So to access those extras, we go up to our import button, something we did in an earlier lesson. But now we're going to access the extras I was talking about. Now I'm already there. I'm going to show you how to get there if you did choose to install all of these extras during the installation process for Corel Draw and the rest of the suite. So I'm going to go down to my computer here. And I'm going to double click my hard drive. This is where everything gets installed. Next, I'm going over to Users. Then I'm going to double click the Public folder. Now this takes me to an area where I will find public documents. And all that means is that if there are several people who can log into this computer with their own accounts, everyone has access to these documents. I'll double click my public documents. There's Corel. You won't see that if you chose not to install everything during the installation process. I did. There's Corel Draw Graphics Suite X4. Double click that. And there is my extras folder. Now the first thing I did when I got here is I clicked and dragged this over to the left-hand navigation pane, so I created a shortcut to this folder because I don't want to have to navigate like that again. So you can do the same if you like. Double-clicking extras shows you you've got clip art, you've got fonts, photos, objects, and there's a setup folder as well. Let's go up to our photos. Double-clicking photos shows us categories of actual bitmap photographs. So if I went to food and drink, for example, you can see all of the different food and drink photos I have. There's my glass of water that I just removed. If I wanted something different, I can scroll through this list. Now, if you're not seeing the actual photos, you can change your view just by clicking the View drop-down. I've got large icons selected. Now, you can also toggle through the different views by clicking the Views button. With each click, you access a different view. There's some smaller bitmap images of the actual photos. So I'm going to scroll down through this list. Maybe this would be a good one. Now I'm thinking, you know what, it's got a background as well. I don't even want a photo at all. I'd rather look at some clip art. So I'm going to come back up here and click on Extras. Now I'm going to double click the clip art folder. I've got food over here. Give it a click, and I've got my own beverage category, so I'm going to double click that. Now these are clip art images, not photos, and some of them look pretty good and will apply to my menu. So as I scroll down the list, maybe this one right here, I'm going to go back up a little bit. My coffee mug would look good. So I'm going to click on it. With it selected, click the Import button, and this allows me to click and drag to draw my coffee cup. Maybe that's a good spot right there. And now when I move it over to the right and down slightly, deselect to see what that looks like. I can zoom in with my zoom tool, press F2 or click on the zoom tool in the toolbox. Let's see what that area looks like. That's much better. I prefer that. I'm going to go back to my pick tool and actually click on it just to make it a little bit bigger and deselect. Shift F4 zooms me back out to see the end result. So I like that. Now what if you wanted to bring in one of those camera raw photos? I have an Olympus camera, so when I switch over to raw mode, my raw photos have an extension ORF. Now if you've got a different kind of camera, a Sony, a Panasonic, you're going to see different extensions for raw mode. So let's see how that works. Now we can go to our import button right up here in CorelDRAW, and down below where it says all file formats, give that a click, and you'll notice on the list we can narrow it down to specific formats, which include Camera Raw right there. But typically I wouldn't bring them directly into Draw. Because there's no processing done to a raw image, you probably need to fix it up to look the way you want before you bring it into Draw. So typically I would rather bring it into PhotoPaint first and then bring it over to Draw. So I'm going to just click the close button up here to close up my extras. And I'm going to launch PhotoPaint from my application launcher. I give it a click. It's at the bottom of the menu, Corel PhotoPaint. This is going to launch PhotoPaint, and because I'm launching it from here, I might see that welcome screen that we're used to seeing when we launch an application from this suite. There it is. Quick start. I'm going to close it up. Don't need it. And I'm not going to import an image. I do have import buttons, but I would have to start some kind of file to import my raw camera photo. Instead, I'm just going to open it because I'm in a bitmap editing application. All I have to do is go to the Open button. Now let's navigate to our Lesson 16 folder of the exercise files, because that's where I've stored that raw photo. You can see the extension ORF. It's fairly large. It's 10 megabytes in size. I'm going to click on it and click Open. Now what this is going to do is not just bring it directly into PhotoPaint. PhotoPaint knows that this is a raw image, so it opens up the Camera Raw Lab. You can see that right up here. So I can make some initial adjustments to this before I actually work on it in PhotoPaint. For example, it needs to be rotated. So I'm going to click my Rotate button up here to rotate it 90 degrees. That's the way it should be right there. And you can see it's kind of fuzzy looking. I might want to adjust some things like the saturation, the temperature, the white balance you can see is selected as shot. If I click that, I can choose from some presets like daylight, and that's going to change the image slightly. I can adjust the temperature, cool it down to the left, warm it up to the right if I wanted to. And you can see the histogram down below. It's kind of showing me I've got some peaks over here for some of the different tints as well. I can drag that to the left. There we go. Changes the peaks ever so slightly. I'm going to saturation, bring that down as well to about -26. And you can see how that really affects my image and the histogram down below. Exposure looks a little overexposed. I'm going to bring it to the left just ever so slightly. That's good. The brightness though can come up a little bit. And maybe the shadows as well can be adjusted. And when I'm happy with my changes, all I have to do is click OK. And when I click OK, now I'll be brought into PhotoPaint. I'm going to come up here to my zoom level drop down and choose to fit. And there's the image in its fairly raw state. There has been some processing done to it in the lab, but now I can start working with this image here in PhotoPaint. And when I'm done, I just simply save it and bring it directly into CorelDRAW. The key to this lesson though is that you can now bring these raw photos directly into PhotoPaint and even CorelDRAW. So when we're done, we save our changes. I'm just going to close PhotoPaint without saving any changes to this image. Returns me back to Draw, where I could use my import button to go locate that image after it's been touched up. So you have a good idea now of some of the extras available to you. Like I say, you've got your own design collection full of photos and clip art. If you've chosen to install them directly on your computer, they do take up a little space, but it's very convenient and easy to locate. If you didn't, not to worry. Insert that extra CD into your drive and access them from the CD drive directly.